Hey, so glad you're with us for the Friday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. It's been another long, strange week, but we've made it together, and today we've got no shortage of strange stories from a special House race in Tennessee to the back and forth between senators urging military members not to obey Trump's illegal orders to Trump accusing them of sedition. And then we're going to be taking a look at how massive fraud has been happening in various welfare programs in the state of Minnesota, and you will certainly not be pleased with where that money seems to be ending up as it gets stolen. So, Jim, I know you're excited to dig into all of these, but which one's got you most fired up today?
This is, it's like there are certain times like TGIF, I don't want to talk about these topics. I want to talk about all these topics. They are all eye-poppingly outrageous in their own way. Like the irony, as listeners will know, there's always a fine line between bad and crazy.
Yes.
But I even think the good is kind of crazy too. This is a all crazy aftertaste edition of our martinis.
No question. So buckle up. Here we go. And we'll get to all of that in just a second. But before we do that, let's talk about the most important thing you can do to help your liver, and that is take dose. Your liver is doing 500 plus functions every single day. 500, more than that actually. Filtering unwanted elements, supporting digestion, helping with energy. But we never think about it until something goes wrong. But what if we actually started supporting it before any problems started? Well, that's what Dose does. It's a clinically backed liquid liver health supplement. It's taken in a daily 2-ounce shot. Could not be simpler. Tastes great like fresh squeezed orange juice. Cleanses the liver of unwanted stressors. And it's got zero junk, zero sugar, and 0 calories.
Greg, we call this podcast the Three Martini Lunch, and people who are watching us on YouTube or some other video version of this will notice I occasionally take sips from a coffee cup. Now, you're probably thinking, are Jim and Greg having 3 martinis? No, otherwise it would not be as coherent as it is. It's coffee, and no, if you're wondering, no, it's not Irish coffee, at least not yet. However, if you are giving your liver a tough time, you're going to want to take Dose daily, because if you drink Dose daily, you're going to reduce your sluggishness, you're going to get rid of those midday crashes, you're going to support your metabolism, and it can even aid your daily digestion.
Yeah, so if you're ready to give your liver the support it deserves, head to dosedaily.co/3ml or enter 3ml to get 35% off the first month of your subscription. Your body does so much work for you, so let's do something for it. That's dosedaily.co/3ml for 35% off your first month's subscription. All right, Jim, as our listeners well know, elections earlier this month did not go great for the Republicans in New Jersey, Virginia, New York City. I mean, all of those were tilted against us, but they certainly were more lopsided than we would have liked to see. But now we've got, next up on the docket, the Tennessee 7th Congressional District special election. That is because Mark Green, and we excoriated him for this last year, just decided to resign in the middle of the term, and actually it was earlier this year, and now we've got a special election. And so the matchup here is Republican candidate Matt Van Epps, and Aftyn Behn is the Democrat. She is a state legislator. Polling has Matt Van Epps ahead. Likely Republican is the Cook Political Report rating on this, but you never know what turnout's going to be in a special election. So Democrats are pumping a ton of money in here trying to get Aftyn Behn over the finish line and score an upset win in Tennessee 7. And so things are not looking great for Aftyn Behn right now, because she's playing defense. And that's because a clip from a podcast she did several years ago has come out where she, who is running to represent part of Nashville, mind you, says she hates Nashville. Well, she also represents Nashville in the state legislature. So here's that clip from a few years ago.
I've been heavily involved with the Nashville mayoral race because I hate the city, I hate the bachelorettes, I hate the pedal taverns, I hate country music, I hate all of the things that make Nashville apparently an it city to the rest of the country, but I hate it. Yeah, I'm that girl at the airport that all these bachelorettes are giddy walking out in their two-toned colored Pantone pink shirts, and they walk out and they're like, oh my god, Nashville is so bad!
They're so loud.
The disdain is palpable. And so now she's accusing the Republicans of launching this scurrilous attack on her, claiming she hates Nashville. Where would Republicans ever have gotten this from? Here's what she's saying now.
So I look a little rough. I have bags under my eyes because the Republican eye of Sauron has finally shifted towards moi. And I'm sure you've seen the commercials. I'm sure you've seen the onslaught of ads. And then today, the Republicans decided that they're going to start this narrative that me, the state representative who represents downtown Nashville, doesn't like the city. Now, I always want Nashville to be better, right? I want Nashville to be a place where working people can thrive, right? But sure, I get mad at the Bachelorette sometimes. I get mad at the pedal taverns, right? And you're talking to someone who has cried no less than 10 times in the Country Music Hall of Fame. The girl that just goes to the Ryman to hang out. No, we're not even going to go.
I don't know how much of a difference this is going to make, Jim, but I know people who live in the Nashville area, and they also hate the influx of bachelorettes and the pedal taverns. But saying you hate country music in Nashville is like running for office in Wisconsin and saying you hate the Packers. So it's not going to go well.
I'm in Western Pennsylvania, and I hate coal. I represent New York City, and I hate skyscrapers. I'm in California, and I hate natural disasters. You know, like these are what these places are known for, right? By the way, it's not true that Republicans are saying that she doesn't like the city. They're saying she hates the city because they're quoting her. Really, the person who was the source of this accusation is you. Look in the mirror. I learned it from watching you, as the 80s anti-drug commercial said. And look, there are two kinds of places in America and in this world. There are the kinds of, I'm thinking here in Washington, D.C., the area where my parents live near Hilton Head Island. There are places where the locals hate tourists. And then the other kind of places no one visits. These are your options. There is not an option where you have just precisely the right number of tourists, that there's never a parking issue, there's never a traffic issue, the bars or restaurants are never crowded. Like you have these are your options. You can have the kind of community that nobody wants to visit. And there are a whole bunch of places in America that are like that. And people there are generally miserable. The economies are not great, right? Or you can have a place like Nashville where people come and visit. Yes, lots of people have their bachelorette parties. The one time I was there was the NRA convention. I had a great time. Nashville, you're beautiful, you're wonderful. Don't ever change. That's my perspective. I would also not vote for a mayor that hates the place. I would not vote for a mayor that hates the country music. You know, she could have tried to play this off as a loss, or as a laugh. Okay, so yeah, I kind of went a little too far there, but aren't we kind of annoyed by the bachelorette parties or something? And she kind of goes in that direction, but she still acts like Republicans are making this terrible, unfair attack by quoting her. Like the person you have to blame is yourself. This is not a dirty trick. This is not, country music vets for truth. This is not some sort of really unfair, no, this is quoting you. And you were aware the microphone was on, right? You're on the podcast. Everyone around you is laughing with you. You really, she could say, oh, I love this place. I was just joking about it. And, that's my Andy Rooney impression or something. Do you ever notice bachelorette parties in Nashville? Do you ever notice the peddling bars? We all know you're not burning enough calories for all the beer you're drinking. She could have done that, but she didn't. So Nashville, the choice is pretty clear. The Republican, guess what? He does not hate the city. He does not hate the country music, and he does not hate and all those tourists. Yeah, they can be a little annoying or loud, but they're spending money there, right? You kind of want that to happen to support all these jobs and all these businesses. Those terrible tourists.
Yeah. No.
Here's the thing. Most Republicans support a war on tourism, as George W. Bush would say.
Yes.
Democrats believe in a war on tourism.
That's true, especially there and during COVID. Yeah, the war on Tara, as George W. Bush used to say. Why does he hate girls named Tara? Anyway, but the other thing that's kind of an influx into Nashville over the past decade or so is lefties from other parts of the country who see freedom in Tennessee, and then they're coming into Nashville and voting for lefties. So this district stretches from downtown Nashville all the way to the Alabama border. So it's one of these districts that the Republicans, kind of carved out to lean Republican for sure. So hopefully that's still the case when this vote happens. But Aftyn Behn, man, you only got yourself to blame for getting yourself into this mess. And did you cry at the Country Music Hall of Fame because your friends wanted to go there, or because you were somehow moved by what happened?
Or was someone cutting onions?
Exactly. So, all right. Well, it's time of year where you're busy with holidays and travel, but don't neglect your health. And when it comes to that dental cleaning or your annual checkup or anything that's been bugging you, don't ignore it. take the time to see a doctor, especially if it's persisting. And there's no better place to find the right doctor for yourself than ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that Jim and I have both used, where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and then click to instantly book an appointment. You never have to get on the phone with anyone.
You can filter for doctors who take your insurance, see if they're located nearby. That was a big factor when I was looking for an optometrist. See if they're a good fit for any particular medical need you might have, and you can check to see if they're highly rated by verified patients. Once you find the right doctor, you can see their actual appointment openings. Choose a time slot that works for you and click to instantly book a visit. Appointments made through ZocDoc also happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours, and more often than not, you can even get same-day appointments.
Yeah, it's a really great service. And again, like I've said, I found a great ENT because a friend recommended one after I didn't like the one I was going to before. And reading those reviews and realizing that this ENT was not going to jump into drastic measures. They're very thoughtful, methodical about how they go about things. Really was my style, and it's been a great relationship ever since. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/3ML to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/3ML. All right, Jim, our bad martini stems over the last 2-3 days now. This all started a couple of days ago when a couple members of the Senate and a couple members of the House put out this vague video encouraging members of the military to disobey illegal orders from the president. Here is that video.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow.
I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community
who take risks each day
to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
Like us. You all swore an oath
to protect and defend this Constitution.
And right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
but from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law
or our Constitution.
We know this is hard
and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
the Army,
or Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
And know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
the American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws,
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
So what are they talking about? The only indication there was pitting the military against American citizens. Does that mean calling in the National Guard to break up anti-ICE riots or so forth? So Jason Crow, who was there and is a former Army Ranger, went on with Martha McCallum on the Fox News channel, and here's that encounter.
So when you see this video on all over the place, when you see this video on social media, I think a lot of people scratch their heads and they say, what exactly are they talking about? Are they talking about
Martha,
not allowing gunboats to make it to the United States carrying drugs? Is that what you're talking about?
Martha, here's a novel idea. How about we actually prevent things from happening before they become a problem?
I think that's what they're trying to do.
What you're saying is we have to wait until there's a problem to respond to that problem.
No, I'm not.
Right? As a military officer, what I think is important is we train people, we give them information, we prepare people for challenges coming down the pike. That is what I did as a commander in the military. That's what I'm doing now, as we are standing by our troops. We are reminding them of their obligation.
Order from the commander-in-chief that we are asking our military to carry out are you objecting to? This is very, very vague. And it was so vague in this video. I don't think people could figure out what you guys were all talking about, honestly.
Yeah, well, she's not alone. And so Trump, of course, pouring gasoline on the fire like he usually does. Truth Social, he says it's called seditious behavior at the highest level. Each one of these traitors to our country should be arrested and put on trial. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. We won't have a country anymore. An example must be set. President DJT. And then in another one, seditious behavior, punishable by death. And so that now has several of these figures jumping back on social media and saying, look, this is exactly what we warned against. This guy's out of control. We have to stop them. And so, the Democrats, are kind of wish casting or nightmare casting, I guess, in this situation. And Trump's kind of given them what they want to let them be the victim status here.
So, Greg, I have a feeling this is one of those episodes that's going to run a little long, and to live down to one of my cliches, there's a lot to unpack here. This is a double-barreled bad martini. First of all, for listeners who listened to that first audio by the Democratic lawmakers, just in case they didn't enunciate, they said, don't give up the ship with a P. You might be thinking they're doing something different with the messaging that they're doing here. Look, if you want to accuse the President of the United States of, first of all, an unlawful order has a particular definition to it, right? It is, must violate the law, must violate the Constitution. An order does not become unlawful by being controversial. Order does not become, if lots of people object to it, that does not necessarily make it unlawful. Not everything that is bad or objectionable is unconstitutional, and vice versa. So you have this situation which they put out this message there. I think if you're going to put out a video telling members of the U.S. military that they must refuse illegal orders, it is more than reasonable to say, okay, what do you have in mind? What has he issued that strikes you as an unlawful order? Or what do you think he is going to or about to issue that is going to be an unlawful order? What is illegal here? And they did not do that. I'm glad you played a significant chunk of the interview with McCallum. If we played the whole interview, like, this podcast would be even longer. But I think that he does come up with 3 different examples, none of which strike me as particularly persuasive. I lay it all out in today's Morning Jolt. One, he said, Trump saying in his first term, can't you just shoot them in the legs or something? Now, this was apparently happening during the George Floyd protests. Former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper said that Trump said this. This is bad. The president should not be speculating about shooting protesters in the legs. But that was not an order, and that did not come to pass, and it's more than 5 years ago. Congressman Crow, what do you have in mind? So, regarding this. Then he says, number 2, he is also threatening to send the military into Chicago and other cities to go to war with those cities. That is a very disturbing thing. Now, with this one, he's at least somewhere more recent. But his example that he's citing is a Truth Social post by the president, which is a meme of himself as Colonel Bill Kilgore from Apocalypse Now, saying Chicago is about to find out why it's called the Department of War. This is an AI-generated image. This is bad. This is dumb. The President of the United States should not be doing this. But the very next day, Trump gets asked about it, and he says, we're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense. Even Donald Trump realizes that saying I am going to war with the city of Chicago is a bad thing, right? I don't like how Trump frosts at the mouth hyperbolically on social media, but that is not an unlawful order. Truth Social AI-generated images are not orders to the military. Then the third example is probably his weakest one, where he says, Crow says, quote, number 3, he has also alluded to sending troops to polling stations, which is a violation of U.S. law. U.S. criminal law prohibits troops from going to polling stations. He has alluded to that. This is just one of many examples. Greg, I think of myself as being a pretty good researcher, not just Google searches and all kinds of. I went looking around for where Trump had said, I'm going to send military troops into polling stations. I have not been able to find that so far. I think Crow is misremembering an interview with Hannity back in August 2020 where he said, we're going to have sheriffs and we're going to have law enforcement and we're going to have hopefully U.S. attorneys and we're going to have everybody and attorney generals at polling places. Now, that's bad, or that's not, but again, that's not military. So this, again, example is more than 5 years ago, not military, did not come to pass. He's 0 for 3. He has not come up with anything that strikes me as an unlawful order that either has been issued or is expected to be issued in the near future. So McCallum, good for her for giving him grief about this. I think it was very snippy. And I think if you're going to make this kind of charge against the president, you should really be prepared for the question, well, what do you have in mind? What specifics are you pointing to as unlawful orders? Now, as you alluded to, Trump and spreading gasoline. By the way, for those wondering, he means the Venezuela stuff. She asked him, and he specifically said, we are not talking about Venezuela at all in this issue. We never mentioned it once. He says, since you raised it, I'm deeply concerned. But apparently in his mind, this video is not about the Venezuela stuff. By the way, I have problems with our Venezuela policy and blowing up these boats, but I do not think they're necessarily unlawful orders. I've not seen an argument indicating the president does not have this authority. I can dispute the wisdom of doing this or whether it's going to get us where we want to go, but I don't actually think this is, a violation of the Constitution. Naturally, Trump, they've set the trap for Trump And he steps directly into the bear trap as hard as he can because he's going to show them by calling for seditious behavior, punishable by death, right? I think it's now safe to say Trump has been in our lives for a long time. We've seen him first on Twitter and now on Truth Social. He's a rageaholic. When something does not go his way, he just vents his spleen in the most angry, furious way possible. It's probably not very healthy, but here's the thing. Greg, if you ask me what's the biggest thing that happened in 2025, we could point to the elections. We could point to bombing the Iranian nuclear program. A lot of big things happened, but I think a really big consequential one was the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And a whole bunch of us afterwards like, wow, this has gotten completely out of control. There's way too much political violence in America. At minimum, we should stop calling for the deaths of our political opponents. That doesn't seem like an unreasonable expectation. I'll let you decide whether, and there are plenty of horrible people out there who just celebrated Charlie Kirk's death. Generally not lawmakers. Generally Democratic lawmakers had the good sense to not put that out there. But there are a whole bunch of activists and ordinary Americans who are like, yay, somebody I don't like got killed. But here's the president saying that because he doesn't like this video that they put out, which there's good reason to object to, he has decided that they are committing sedition and should be, arrested, put on trial, and put to death. Leave it to Trump to do that. Karl Rove has a column where he said, Trump is getting better as more time he spends in office. I don't think I buy into that. I think this is once again, an entirely self-inflicted wound on the president. The old joke is somebody needs to take away his phone and all that stuff. There's nothing good about this. And in a world where we have, people taking shots at Charlie Kirk, in a world where we have political violence everywhere, the president saying my opponent should be executed is really not good on a multitude of levels. I wish he would stop it. Clearly, he's not going to stop it. And I think it's just something we have to live with for the remainder of his presidency.
Who knows if this will still be a story going forward, but the Democrats get their grievances aired again as a result of this. So being the victim is the thing they love the most, and they get another chance to do that. So, all right. Well, anyway, while that fight's going on, there's also a fight to make sure that you have enough money to make ends meet and hopefully put a little bit away in savings so you have something after you retire. And if you want to get a great handle on your finances all the time, Rocket Money. This app is the way to go. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings.
You have a lot of options with your money. I myself would not recommend giving it to a Somali American autism charity in the state of Minnesota. Foreshadowing our third martini here. Rocket Money shows you all of your expenses in one place, including subscriptions you may have forgotten about. So if you see a subscription you no longer want, Rocket Money will help you cancel it. Their dashboard lays out your entire financial picture, including bill due dates and paydays, which means Rocket Money can analyze your accounts and find the best time each month to try to put some extra money aside. And Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bills for you. The app automatically scans your bills to find opportunities to save, and they'll even talk to customer service so that you don't have to.
Yeah, if you want an easy way to keep track of what you're bringing in and what you're spending, Rocket Money could not be easier. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/martini today. That's rocketmoney.com/martini. All right, Jim, on to our crazy martini now. And this is a long story. If you want to read the whole story, go to City Journal. It's written by Ryan Thorpe and Christopher Rufo. And it's basically focusing on how welfare programs in Minnesota, the costs have absolutely spiraled out of control. And a lot of the money is actually ending up in the hands of terrorists. Yeah, you heard that right. So this is part of it. If you were to design a welfare program to facilitate fraud, it would probably look a lot like Minnesota's Medicaid Housing Stabilization Services Program. The HHS, the first of its kind in the country, was launched with a noble goal to help seniors, addicts, the disabled, and the mentally ill secure housing. It was designed with low barriers to entry and minimal requirements for reimbursement. It was originally put at a price tag annually of $2.6 million, but those costs quickly spiraled out of control. In 2021, the program paid out more than $21 million in claims, and it just started the year before that. In the following years, annual costs shot up to $42 million, $74 million, then $104 million. And during the first 6 months of this year, payouts totaled $61 million. On August 1st, Minnesota's Department of Human Services moved to scrap the program, noting that payment to 77 housing stabilization providers had been terminated this year due to credible allegations of fraud. Meanwhile, in September, the same day that the HSS fraud charges were announced, the U.S. Attorney's Office reported that they had charged the 56th defendant to plead guilty in a $250 million Feeding Our Future fraud scheme. That started out at a $3.4 million intake from the federal government. But by 2021, just 2 years after it started, $200 million in funding was coming in. And then there's the autism Medicaid program that you just mentioned, Jim. It started out as a $3 million program in 2018, jumped up to $54 million the next year, $77 million, $183 million, $279 million, $399 million in 2023. And so the question is, where's all this money going? And they say our investigation reveals for the first time that some of this money has been directed to an even more troubling destination, the Al-Qaeda-linked Islamic terror group Al-Shabaab. According to multiple law enforcement sources, Minnesota's Somali community has sent untold millions through a network of hawalas, which are informal clan-based money traders that have wound up in the coffers of Al-Shabaab. The Somalis are apparently fleecing this autism Medicaid program because right now, 1 in 16 Somali 4-year-olds in the state are supposedly diagnosed with autism, a rate more than triple the state average. And so, Jim, as the Stark quoted towards the beginning of the article says, the number one funder of Al-Shabaab and terrorism in Somalia is the Minnesota taxpayer.
Well, look, I'm thinking back to George W. Bush and his statement that if you feed a terrorist, we will treat you like a terrorist. If you fund a terrorist, we will treat you like a terrorist. Minnesota taxpayers, I'm sorry. You have been funding terrorism for quite some time, and it's time for us to come after you. I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but clearly the Minnesota state government is the one who is ultimately responsible here and has been absolutely asleep at the wheel, not just on one financial scandal, on several financial scandals. I'm looking back to July 29th, 2024, more than a year ago, where the first inkling of Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, being Kamala Harris's running mate had kind of bubbled up through the media ecosystem. And I will put myself down as somebody who's an absolute skeptic of that ever happening. Headline, Harris VP shortlifter comes loaded with baggage. And I walked through all of these giant state funding, mismanagement, and fraud scandals that were known at that time. As you're laying out today, it's gotten much worse, that it all happened on Tim Walz's watch. And it was one of those questions of like, why, there's good news that the legislature has a position called the state legislative auditor, whose job is to go through all the state spending and figure out where the money is going. Judy Randall's the person at the time, and she's been busy. She's been a lot of work to do because it's not just one program. It's not just small. Like every state's going to say, okay, you're going to have some waste and mismanagement and fraud and abuse. We're talking about one of these like $250 million. These are the largest scale fraud problems we've seen in the state government in a long, long time, maybe ever, probably ever. So the question is, why does this keep happening, right? And for what it's worth, Ms. Randall actually did go through this and basically say that, look, quote, state agencies don't necessarily approach their work with an oversight and a regulatory mindset. They talk about working with their beneficiaries. They basically don't have any incentive to, and don't feel any sense of like, well, why should we, perhaps we shouldn't trust everyone who comes to us looking for money. All right. I hear this and I feel one degree of outrage and one degree of regret that I did not know about this sooner and apply for grants from the state of Minnesota. Because apparently they're not checking anything. We could have had a state-funded podcast for a long time, Greg. And basically, they just had, what's the meme from the Little Rascals of just throwing the money out the window? That's what they're doing. They are dropping money from helicopters like it's turkeys on WKRP. That's that's what's at work there. And it is absolutely baffling. So the other thing is that, one other kind of stray thought next to this. Peggy Noonan, columnist for the Wall Street Journal, somebody who I admire a great deal, wrote a column last week after reading the Kamala Harris memoir and John Fetterman's memoir. And she came away with it with the question, like, what do non-leftists, the non-AOC, non-Momdami Democrats, what do they stand for? What is, we know what the hard left of the party wants to do to the country, destroy it, upturn everything, go socialist, go. But if you're not one of them, let's say you're a Democrat and you don't buy into that, what do you stand for? And I have a corner post today where I kind of walk through what mainstream Democrats believe, and the distinctions are starting to be so small that they're kind of meaningless. A point of like, well, maybe you don't believe in, you may recognize okay, we have to enforce immigration laws. House Democrats have no enthusiasm for enforcing immigration laws. Right? They may begrudgingly concede that we have to do it, but they greet that task the way that most of us greet going to the Department of Motor Vehicles. Right? So when you look at Tim Walz, I don't know whether you think of him as a hard left progressive or as a centrist. I'm sure he would insist that he's mainstream. But they don't really believe in paying attention to government. They run the government, but they don't really believe in paying attention to make sure, is the money going where it's supposed to be going? Otherwise, we would not be having a lot of Minnesota taxpayer money going to terrorist groups. That seems like a really low bar. Are you sure that your state funding is not going to Islamist terrorist groups? And in the state of Minnesota, they can't do it. Because I think in the end, to be a mainstream Democrat, you just have to have this kind of unfailing faith in government as being good. And I suspect on some level they're afraid to look too closely because that might shatter their faith in the goodness of government. So they just get blasé about it and talk about, tampons and bathrooms and stuff like that. Like these happy social issues rather than looking at their actual job, which is running state governments.
Yeah, they have good intentions, Jims, and that's all that really matters. The details we'll figure out later, and that's why...
I'm pretty sure Al-Shabaab, by the way, does not have tampons in its bathroom. For anybody.
Yes, and they were saying in this piece that $1.7 billion got sent back from the U.S. to Somalia, which is bigger than Somalia's annual budget. So that's not good. That's really not good.
They shut down USAID, Greg. What are they going to do?
Jeez. Anyway, we finally reached the weekend, Jim. Enjoy. I'll see you on Monday.
See you Monday, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Please be sure to subscribe to the 3 Martini Lunch podcast. If you don't already, tell your friends about us as well. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Greg Corombos. And don't forget, you can follow the 3 Martini Lunch on Facebook and Instagram. Have a terrific weekend. Join us again on Monday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.